Hi friends, welcome to Defense IAS Academy. Today we are going to see on the topic ecology. We are going to discuss about ecology in terms of the upcoming UPSC examination. So starting with biosphere and how the ecosystem works. So what is a biosphere? Biosphere is an part of lithosphere, hydrosphere and atmosphere together. It's like you can see in the picture for a diagrammatic picturization of in your mind. A biosphere is a part of hydrosphere, lithosphere and atmosphere where the human beings live. So all these factors together, atmosphere, hydrosphere and lithosphere. Atmosphere is basically air, hydrosphere is basically water and lithosphere is earth. So all these components together form a biosphere where you can live and it contains life. Biosphere contains life. So the biosphere contains two types of components. One is the biotic components, that is the living organisms, and the abiotic components, which is the physical environment and the energy present in an ecosystem. So there is always a continuous interaction between the biotic component and the abiotic component, that means a living organism and its physical environment for the ecosystem to work properly. So the biosphere always have contact with its physical environment and biosphere contains both abiotic and biotic components. So there is always an interaction between this living and non-living organisms to create a biosphere. So there are two types of biospheres. Majorly it is divided into two. One is terrestrial biomes system and second is aquatic biome system. So first the classification of biosphere is terrestrial biomes. The terrestrial biomes are usually the biomes or the biosphere systems that are found in the land. It can be comprised of three subsystems: plant system, animal system and soil system. So all these three subcomponents or subsystems interact with them so that there is always a movement of energy and materials among them. So it is like not an unidirectional movement, it is a cyclic pathway of movement between the plant, animals and the soil system. So they transfer energy and materials in a cyclic pathway. Now the next is the aquatic biomes, which is mainly concerned with the biomes related with the water. So the term aquatic refers to water. So it's like related to water. So there are again three subsystems for the aquatic biomes. It is plant system, animal system and nutrients. These three subsystems also have an interaction with each other so that the energy and the matter move among themselves in a cyclic pathway. So this is about terrestrial biosystem and aquatic biomes. The man usually depends on the biosphere to fulfill all his needs like food, drugs, clothing, housing, paper, tourism, environment, etc. So man is inside the biosphere who is depending upon all the aquatic and the terrestrial biomes, broadly classified as biotic and abiotic systems for his complete needs. So next terminology to be seen is ecology. What is ecology? So earlier we told that a biosphere has two things, that is abiotic and biotic components, that is living organisms and non-living organisms. So now ecology can be defined as this interaction or a study of the interaction of the organisms with their physical environment and each other, like the interactions between the living organisms and the physical environment can be coined to a term called as ecology. The study of those interactions is called as ecology. This was derived from the Greek word okios, meaning house, and it's combined with the logi, which means a science, that is studying of, like or logi. So literally, we can say that ecology is a study of Earth as a household of plants, human beings, animals, and microorganisms. So all these are live together in a biosphere, and they form interdependent components. Means plants, like all these components, plants, human beings, animals, microorganisms, they are all dependent with each other. Okay. So, who found the term ecology? A German zoologist called Ernst Haeckel. Okay, German zoologist called Ernst Haeckel was the one who first used the term ecology in the year 1869. So 1869 he became the first one to use the term ecology. So the briefly saying, it is the ecology is a study of interactions between biotic and abiotic contents of an ecosystem. Now, what is an ecosystem? So, ecosystem can be described as a fully functional unit of nature where you have the organisms interacting with themselves, also with their surrounding environment. Okay, so you can see in the picture that you have biotic components and biotic components. Biotic components are the living things, and the abiotic components are the physical environment that is provided. So the producers, that means all the things in this environment that has life is called as biotic. That is like plants. You can have plants, the consumers, there comes the animals, and the decomposers where you have the fungi and the bacteria. All those are biotic living things. And to the left side you can see the abiotic things where you have water, mineral, heat that is released from sun. Okay, so all those are physical conditions or environment that is needed for a biotic component to survive. So the interaction between, you can see a lot of arrows in this picture, that means that everything is dependent or interrelated with each other. So this interrelation, this interrelation is called as an this interrelation is it makes an ecosystem. So the interrelation between abiotic and biotic components make an ecosystem. So there are four basic components of an ecosystem. The first part is the abiotic part, which is the non-living environment. Means all the physical conditions that are present in an ecosystem are called the abiotic part, which are the minerals, the heat energy that is provided from, or that we get from the sun, etc. Next next component is producers or the autotrophs. These are basically the green plants that are capable of producing their own sunlight using the they who can produce their own food using the sunlight. Okay, so they make the carbohydrates from water and carbon dioxide. with the help of sunlight, and this complete process is called as photosynthesis. And the third category of ecosystem is consumers or the heterotrophs. So what are they? They are animals which obtain their food from the plants or other animals. So they eat other animals or plants to get their food. So the heterotrophs can be classified into four depending upon the feeding habits. One is herbivorous, who eat only living plant material. Second one is detritivorous. They feed on dead plant and animals. Examples are like earthworms, blowflies, maggots, etc. They have an important role in the ecosystem because they help in the breakdown of organic matter. Like they eat the dead plant and the animal material, and they help in the breakdown of the organic matter. They are basically called as a decomposer. Okay, it can also be called as a decomposer. And uh, uh, then we have the carnivorous. So what is a carnivorous? It eats other animals. Next we have omnivorous, who eats both plants and animals. The last component of the ecosystem is decomposers. So a decomposer is an example is something like bacteria or a fungi that promote decay. So these are the essential components of an ecosystem. And a biotic part, a producer, a consumer, and a decomposer. So here in this picture you can very well see you have an uh, I'll categorize it as biotic itself. So the abiotic things that you have over here is water, the sun energy, the precipitation. Okay, let me take the pen. Okay, the sun energy, the water sources, and the precipitations that is forming, all these are non-living or things that doesn't have a life. Okay, so they are the abiotic components of this ecosystem. Next component is the producer. So okay, the producer, you can see a tree. That's a plant who can generate its own food from the help of or with the help of sunlight, basically through the process of photosynthesis. And then you can see the primary consumer. The primary consumer is someone who feeds on the plant. Okay, and then you have the secondary consumer who feeds on the primary consumer. Okay, secondary consumer who feeds on the primary consumer. Then the last component that you have here is the soil decomposers. So they also play an important role in the ecosystem for decomposing the dead remains of either plants or animals to organic matter. So next, what are the types of ecosystem that we have? So the ecosystem differs in its size. Okay, so it can be a small pond or it can be a large forest or a sea. So the ecosystem varies very greatly depending on its size. Since this system is big and complex to be studied, we can categorize the ecosystem to two basic categories like terrestrial ecosystem and aquatic ecosystem. So the terrestrial deals with the land, aquatic deals with the water. Okay, so what is a terrestrial ecosystem? It is an ecosystem that is found only on landforms. Okay, so terrestrial basically definition is an ecosystem which is found only on landforms is known as a terrestrial ecosystem. So what is the factor that is making that difference between a terrestrial and an aquatic ecosystem? So you can make it out from the words itself. The main difference that makes between the terrestrial and aquatic ecosystem is definitely the water. The terrestrial ecosystem has a relative shortage of water, and water has an importance in the aquatic ecosystem. In the terrestrial ecosystem, you have a shortage of water or a limited availability of water. Another factor that makes the land ecosystem or the terrestrial ecosystem different from the aquatic one is better availability of light. Okay, better availability of light. The terrestrial ecosystem has more light. I think it receives more light while comparing to the aquatic ecosystem. Uh, and there are many types of terrestrial ecosystem, which are the forest ecosystem, the desert ecosystem, the grassland ecosystem, and the mountain ecosystem. Okay, so there are four basic classification of ecosystem. Next is the aquatic ecosystem. So the other side of your classification. One is terrestrial, second is aquatic. So what is aquatic? It is a ecosystem which exists in a body of water. Okay, an aquatic ecosystem exists in a body of water. There are mainly two types of aquatic ecosystems. One is freshwater ecosystems and the second one is marine ecosystems. So I have given a picture about the differentiation. The left side shows the aquatic ecosystem and the right side shows the terrestrial ecosystem. So please keep these pictures in mind. That itself give you the idea of what is a terrestrial and ecosystem and the aquatic ecosystem. So you can keep this picture in mind so that things come to your mind suddenly when you are approaching an exam. So next, the energy flow in an ecosystem. So how is the energy being passed from one phase to another, or one organism to another in the ecosystem? So we can say that sun is the primary source of energy in all the ecosystems. So sun has importance everywhere, like both terrestrial and aquatic. Sun is the major source of energy, and the solar radiation that come is like 50% of it is photosynthetically active radiation. Okay, so the whatever the rays that come from sun, like 50% of that, it is photosynthetically active radiation, that is PAR. So, which says that what is this photosynthetically active radiation? It designates a spectral range of solar radiation from like 400 to 700 nanometers that photosynthetic organisms are able to use in the process of photosynthesis. Okay, so photosynthetically active radiation is a radiation that comes in the wave band of 400 to 700 nanometers, 400 to 700 nanometers, and the rays in this wave band is basically used by the photosynthetic organisms to help them do the photosynthesis. Okay, so mainly plants come in this category. They do the photosynthesis to produce their own food. So plants capture around like 2 to 10% of this photosynthetically active radiation, and this small amount, 2 to 10% is like very small amount, and this small amount is enough for sustaining the entire living world. The energy of the sunlight fixed in food production by green plants is passed through the ecosystem by food chains and food webs from one trophic level to the another. Okay, so in this way energy is like flowing through the ecosystem. So the energy starts with the producer, that is the green plants, who get the sunlight and make their own food. So from the producer, the energy is passed from one ecosystem to another, or one level to another. You can say it as a trophic level. So it is passed from one trophic level to the another trophic level through the food chains and the food webs. The food chain is something like the circular movement of energy and material. Like you can say that. Plant the plant gets its food from the sun, then an insect eats up, like worm eats an plant, that is the leaves. So the worm gets its energy from the leaf, then the worm is eaten by a bird. So bird gets its energy from the worm. Then the big bird is you can say that the bird is eaten by a hawk. So the top level is the hawk gets the energy from the bird. So the energy is always the energy, and the material is getting transferred from one level to the another in a food chain. Okay, so the trophic structure of ecosystems. The trophic structure of an ecosystem, you have to familiarize two words in that. What is a trophic structure and what are trophic levels? Now, the organization and the pattern of feeding in an ecosystem is known as a trophic structure, and the levels through which the energy passes from one group of organism to another group of organism is called as the trophic levels. So as we said earlier, that the energy flow mainly occurs from food chain and food web. So like it occurs through food chain and food web. So first, what is a food chain? It is a chain of transformation or transfer of food energy in an ecosystem from one group of organism to the another group of organisms through a series of steps or levels. So that is a food chain. So from the figure you can make out an food chain. You have your primary source as sun. Sun gives energy to the grass, who is the primary producer. It receives energy from sun, makes its own food. Now you have a grasshopper, who is the primary consumer, who consumes grass. Then you have a secondary consumer, who is shrew, who eats the grasshopper. And the final consumer, that is a tertiary consumer, which is an owl, it eats on a shrew. So this is a food chain. So where the energy is transformed from one organism to another organisms through different steps. Okay, so this food chain can be classified into again two types. One is the grazing food chain, and next is the detritus food chain. Okay, now what is the grazing food chain? In grazing food chain, the first level starts with plants as producers, and it ends with carnivorous or consumers at the last level, with the herbivorous being in the intermediate level. So the pattern comes like you have a plant, then you have a herbivorous, and then you have a carnivorous. So when energy passes from one organism to another, there is definitely a loss of energy at each level through respiration, excretion, and decomposition. Okay, you have always an energy loss through respiration, excretion, and decomposition. These levels involved in a food chain range from 3 to 5, and energy is lost at each level. Okay, so basically a food chain, it says that basically a food chain can have 3 to 5 levels, and energy is lost at every level. Now you can see an example of grazing food chain, like you have phytoplanktons, then you have zooplanktons, then you have a fish sequence, like phytoplanktons eat zooplanktons and zooplanktons eats fish. So here phytoplanktons get its energy from sun, zooplanktons herbivorous eats the phytoplanktons, and fish now it's like a carnivorous, which is eating the like the fish is like a consumer, a secondary consumer, which is eating on the zooplankton. Now you can have another sequence also, like grass, rabbit, fox. Here grass is an producer, rabbit is a herbivorous consumer, and the fox is a carnivorous consumer. Okay, so this both these are examples of a grazing food chain. Now next is the detritus food chain. So what is detritus food chain? So this is a type of food chain that goes from dead organic matter into microorganisms and then to organisms feeding on detritus, that is detrivorous and their predators. This ecosystem is less dependent on the solar energy. They depend chiefly on the organic matter that is produced in another system. Example for such a food chain is the decomposition of the accumulated litter in the temperate forest. Okay, so the decomposition that happens in a temperate forest can be an example of the detritus food chain. Now that's about the food chain. So what is a food web? Okay, a food web, when a feeding relationship in a natural ecosystem become more complicated, the food chain does not remain simple and linear, rather it becomes complicated, and there may be a lot of interconnected or overlapping food chains that can form. So this type of interrelated or a complicated food chain is called as a food web. Okay. So here you can see that from your figure, you can see that you have a plant. Then the plant is eaten by a squirrel and a grasshopper, and the squirrel is eaten by an owl. Then the same, like the grasshopper is eaten by a bird, and bird is eaten by a snake, and snake is eaten by an owl. So the type is somewhat the same, but it is complicated. They are interrelated. Okay, it goes like plant, squirrel, owl, plant, grasshopper, bird, snake. And you can also have like the plant eats the grass, the grasshopper eats the plant, the frog eats the grasshopper, and snake eats the frog, and the owl eats the snake. So there are lot of interdependent food chains that exist in this system. Okay, so such a complex and interrelated or interdependent food chains are called as a food web. So now, what is the trophic structure of the ecosystem? So the structure of an ecosystem can be called as an ecological pyramid. Ecological pyramid can be told as a graphical representation of the relationship between the various living beings at the various levels. That is, as a producer, as a consumer, as a like secondary consumer, as a tertiary consumer, as a decomposer. So like the relationship between them at various trophic levels, this different categories can be called as a level, trophic level. So the relationship between these levels can be pictorially represented as an ecological pyramid. Okay, and this pyramid is formed on the basis of the organisms involved in it, the energy that is involved in it, and the biomass that is involved in it. Okay, so the total number of species and the total number of total biomass and the total energy availability, it decreases when you go to the higher trophic levels. That is the number of species present in the producer level won't be the same as the number of species present in your top level or the tertiary consumer level. Okay, and the energy also decreases when you go from one organism to the another. So definitely producers will have the highest energy and the tertiary consumer will have the lowest energy in the food chain. So definitely the it goes like the values decreases as you go up, and it gives a pyramid kind of a shape, and thus it is called as an ecological pyramid. Okay, the base of the pyramid represents the producers. That is, the first trophic level is producer, and the apex represents, that is the top level consumer, it represents the tertiary consumer. Okay, now the ecological pyramids can be classified into three based on the number, that is pyramid of number, pyramid of biomass, and pyramid of energy. Okay, pyramid of number means depends upon the number of organisms in each trophic level. Biomass is the biomass present in each trophic level, and pyramid of energy is the energy distribution that occurs in each trophic level, and the energy distribution definitely decreases from producers to the tertiary consumers. Let's discuss the various pyramids that are coming in the trophic structure of the ecosystem. So first is the number pyramid. Okay, so the number pyramid. As I said earlier, the number pyramid depends upon the number of species in one level, and the transition of the number of species from one trophic level to the higher trophic level. The lower trophic levels usually have a higher number of species, and the as your trophic level increases, the number of species also decreases. Here, for example, I have shown a woodland food chain where you have primary means producer as your leaf, then primary consumer as the caterpillar, then a secondary consumer as blue ticks, and the hawk comes as a tertiary consumer. Okay, so the number of leaves in the primary level or your producer level is around like 1 lakh. When you go to the primary consumer level, the number of caterpillar is just like 10,000. Then you go up the level, it is 100, and in the top level or the apex, it is just like 1. So the number of the species reduces from one trophic level to the next trophic level. This is called as the number pyramid. This classification of your trophic structure is called as the number pyramid. Okay, next classification is based on the biomass. Okay, so what is biomass? Biomass pyramid is formed by classifying the organic matter at each trophic level, or it depends upon the total weight of organic matter at each trophic level. So this is the second pyramid of your trophic structure. I hope you still remember what is a trophic structure. I'll just tell it again. It is an organization or a pattern of feeding in an ecosystem. And a pattern of feeding in an ecosystem is called as a trophic structure, and the levels through which your food passes, or the food energy passes from one group to the another group of organism is called as the trophic levels. Okay, so the classification biomass pyramid tells that the total weight of organic matter at each level. The total biomass actually reduces or decreases from one trophic level to the next trophic level. Again, here you can see an example of a woodland food chain. Here the producer is leaves. You can see that mass of all leaves is like higher. Then the primary consumer is the caterpillar, who still have a who still have a organic matter weight which is less than of your producer. And next level is bloatids, who have the organic matter weight less than that of the primary consumer. And definitely the apex, where you have the sparrowhawk, the organic matter weight or the biomass is very less than the secondary consumer level. So the biomass, that is the total weight of the organic matter, it decreases when you pass from one trophic level to the next trophic level. Next is the energy pyramid. That is the last classification of your trophic structure. So the energy pyramid says that the total amount of energy that is present at one trophic level of your food chain per unit area per unit time. Okay. It represents the total energy that is present in a trophic level per unit area per unit time. The energy is expressed in kilocalories per square meter per day or per year. Okay. You can see example over here. Here you have sun as your primary source, which has around like 10 lakh joules of energy. And then in your first trophic level, you have your producer, that is the plant, who gets around like 10 joules of energy. And The energy depreciation or decreases because of the processes like photosynthesis, which the plants do to make their own food. And now the primary consumer, you have your snail who's going to eat your plants, and then the energy getting transferred from plants to snail again then decreases to 1000 joules. Next level, it's a secondary consumer. You have your frog, and there again there is a decrease in energy to 100 joules. Now at the last level, the tertiary consumer level, you have fox, and the energy get reduced to 10 joules. So if you see the pyramid, it goes like a pyramid. If you see it, the value of your energy decreases from your lower level to your upper level per day, like per square meter per day, or it can be per year. So this is called as an energy pyramid for of a trophic structure. Next is productivity. So after the trophic structure, like where we have seen the energy or the numbers or the biomass passing from one level to another. Now we will see the productivity in an ecosystem. So what is productivity? The rate of production of organic matter in an ecosystem is known as productivity. Okay, the rate of production of an organic matter is known as productivity. There are two types of productivity, the primary productivity and the secondary productivity. The primary productivity happens in the autotroph level, that is the producer level. Okay, the autotroph level, that is producer level, where you have plants who gets energy from sunlight and creates their own food. And then you have your secondary productivity, which happens at the heterotroph level, where you have your primary consumers, okay, who are eating upon the plant, and they get your energy, like depending on the feeding habits. In secondary level, you can have a carnivorous and herbivorous or an omnivorous. Okay, so the secondary productivity is basically the energy productivity that is happening in your heterotroph level. Okay, and the productivity can further be divided into two again, like the gross productivity and the net productivity. Gross productivity and net productivity. Gross productivity is the total amount of organic matter that is produced, and net productivity is the amount of organic matter that is left after some has been used in respiration. Okay, so the primary productivity will basically depend upon the efficiency of photosynthesis and the amount of light energy coming into the system. Why we say like this is that the intensity and the duration of the sunlight, it varies globally. That means the amount of sunlight you receive at one point of your world won't be the same at the another point of earth. Okay, so so we can say that the gross primary productivity will vary greatly in different ecosystem, because the primary energy source intensity and its duration varies. Okay, so the primary productivity basically depends upon the photosynthesis and the light energy coming from sun. And you can also say that the primary productivity depends on the species that inhabiting a particular area, because there are a lot of environmental factors that are affecting the species which are inhabiting a particular area. Like all the species are not the same. They have a various food needs, that is the nutrient needs, and various type of other environmental needs. Okay, so different habitats have different kinds of species. Okay, so the primary productivity also depend upon the plant species that is inhabiting a particular area, and also on the environmental factors. So in environmental factors, you have your nutrients and the photosynthetic capacity, that is the food making capacity of your plants. Okay, therefore the primary productivity again difference in various type of ecosystems. Okay, next, the secondary productivity, it depends upon the conversion of a plant substance to an animal substance. That is the efficiency in transfer of energy from one trophic level to the next trophical level is known as the ecological efficiency, or your secondary productivity. Okay. Next terms that we have to keep in mind is ecological niche, habitat, and what is a species structure. Okay. Now, so what is an ecological niche? An ecological niche is something that can be defined as an role of an organism in an ecosystem. Okay, what is the role of an organism in an ecosystem? That role, specific role of an organism, is told as niche in an ecological or ecology. The species vary in breadth of roles performed. Some animals are specialized in their feeding habits, such as the koala bear, which eats only eucalyptus leaves, and others are like generalists, consuming a wide variety of food. So, the majority of animals occupy a broad ecological niche, and so are generalists in their feeding habits. Okay, so each and every role of an organism is in an ecosystem is called as an ecological niche. Now next, what is an habitat? And the ecological niche of this species may vary through its distribution in relation to its habitat, which is the name given to the place where the organism lives. So habitat is basically a place where the organism lives. The factors like the availability of food, the competition from other species will influence the role of an individual. For example, man, he can operate as an herbivore, can be a carnivore, or can be an omnivore in different places. Okay, man can survive as a herbivore, eating only the plants, and he can be a carnivore where he feeds on animals, and he can be omnivore, means he can have a combination of plant and animal food in different places. So the habitat can be habitat is a place where the organisms lives, and the ecological niche of this species depends upon the habitat, and its distribution is like really vast, or you can say that every organism has a ecological niche that is always related to its habitat. Okay, next is the species structure. So the species structure of an ecosystem refers to the number of species present, their relative abundance and diversity. Okay, so the total number of species that are present, their abundance and diversity. Characteristically, the ecosystem contains a fewer number of species that are relatively common, having large number in their population or large amount of biomass in their standing crop, and a large number of species that are rare. Next is decomposition. So what is decomposition? Decomposition is a process where the dead animal or a plant is being broken down or rotten. Okay, this process is carried out by the decomposers. By example are the invertebrates, fungi, the bacteria, etc. They feed on the dead and the dead remains of it can be a plant or an animal, dead remains of an animal and a plant, to break down it to a organic matter. Okay, so the result of decomposition is that the building blocks required for a life can be recycled. So decomposers play an important role in recycling the things that are required for a life. Some dead animals will be eaten by the scavenging animals such as like foxes and crows. Okay, those which are not eaten by larger animals are decomposed or broken down by the chemicals that are created by beetles and their larvae, then flies, maggots, worms, as well as bacteria, molds, and fungi. So together, all these together are collectively known as decomposers. Okay, so you have your fungi here, bacteria, invertebrates, then scavenging animals, then the chemicals that are coming from the like insects like beetles, then the larvae and beetles and the larvae, then the flies, maggots, all together collectively come under the decomposers, who can break down the dead or a dead animal or plant so that they can be recycled. Okay, decomposition. The next term used in the ecosystem is decomposition. So what is decomposition? Decomposition is like decomposing the or breaking down of the dead plant and animal remains by the uh, detritivores, like the decomposers. Okay, so the important steps that are involved in the decomposition is fragmentation, leaching, catabolism, humification, and mineralization. Okay, so the fragmentation, so we will say about fragmentation first. The detritivores, that is the earthworm, examples like earthworm, they break down the detritus into smaller particles. This is process is called as fragmentation. Now you may be wondering, what is this detritus? Okay, detritus is basically the leaves or other plant parts, or it can be animal remains and waste products that fall into the soil or any other bodies of water from the surrounding terrestrial and ecosystem. Okay, so this is called as detritus, and the detritivores, they break down this debris or this waste into smaller particles. This is called as fragmentation. Now next process is the leaching. Okay, so what is leaching? Leaching is where the water soluble inorganic nutrients go down into the soil horizon and get precipitated as unavailable salts. Okay, that is leaching. Now, next is catabolism. What is catabolism? The bacterial and the fungal enzymes degrade the detritus into simpler inorganic substances. Okay, the waste is the waste or the debris is converted into simpler inorganic substances by the bacterial or the fungal enzymes. This process is called as catabolism. And next is the we can say that the decomposition step. It is important to say that the above steps in decomposition operate simultaneously on the detritus, that is the waste or the raw material for decomposition. Similar terms, you can say that fragmentation, leaching, and catabolism, they occur together for decomposition to happen on a waste. Okay, on a plant or an animal waste. Next is humification or and mineralization. They occur during decomposition in the soil. Okay, so this is the humification is something that is happening during decomposition in the soil, and the humification leads to accumulation of a dark colored substance called the humus, that is lightly resistant to microbial action, and it undergoes decomposition as an extremely slower rate. Okay, so being colloidal in nature, it serves as a reservoir of nutrients. The humus is then further degraded by some microbes, and release of inorganic nutrients occurs by the process known as mineralization. Okay, that is mineralization. The humus that is created from the humification is degraded by some kind of microbes, and they release inorganic nutrients. Okay, this process is called as mineralization. Okay, now this full process of decomposition, fragmentation, leaching, catabolism, humification, and mineralization, all these are oxygen requiring process. Everything needs oxygen for its proper functioning. Okay, next the rate of decomposition is always controlled by a chemical composition of the detritus and the climatic factors. Okay, that is the rate at which dead matter, whether it may be a plant or an animal, it get decomposed, is depending on a chemical. It is depend upon the chemical composition of the detritus and also the climatic factors that are affecting it. When talking about the climatic factor, the decomposition rate is slower if the detritus is rich in lignin and chitin and such things, and it is quicker if the detritus is rich in nitrogen and water soluble substances like sugar. That is about the chemical composition of the detritus. Now telling about the climate. Okay, temperature and the soil moisture are also very important climate factors that regulate the decomposition of the detritus. Okay, so other than the four steps, you can say that climate and also the chemical composition of the detritus matters for the perfect decomposition to happen. Next term that comes with the connection or in connection with the ecosystem is biomagnification. Okay, so biomagnification is also called as bioamplification. So what is it? It is a process by which some substances becomes more concentrated in the bodies of the consumer when you move up your trophic levels, that is move up your food chains. Mostly chemicals and pesticides that are let into the rivers and the lakes, which are consumed by the organisms like a fish, which in turn is consumed by larger birds and then animals or humans. These chemicals get accumulated in the fish and then to the larger birds, then to the animals, and then to the humans. So these harmful substances become concentrated in tissues and the internal organs as you move up your food chain. Okay, so when this happens as a daily process, okay, more and more chemicals get concentrated or accumulated in your body. Okay, what are the substances that have the potential to be a biomagnifier? Okay, there are four types or four classifications for that. One is polychlorinated biphenyls, okay, which are used in insulators, in transformers, and the fire retardants. These are one type of chemical that get passed in your food chain. Second is polynuclear aromatic hydrocarbons, okay, which are present in the petroleum products. Okay, that is also a chemical that get concentrated in your trophic levels. Okay, next is heavy metals like mercury, copper, cadmium, chromium, lead, nickel, zinc, tin, etc. These also gets into your food chain through the or while dumping them into the rivers or lakes. Next is cyanides that is used in fishing and gold leaching, that also come into your food chain through some or the other way. Now, what are the effects of the biomagnification? What happens if this biomagnification occurs? Okay, the if there is biomagnification or bioamplification, then higher concentration of DDT in some bird species causes failure of eggs by thinning the shells. Okay, so that is one kind of problem that happens when you have a biomagnification. Next, the PCBs can affect the immune system. What is a PCB? PCB is polychlorinated biphenyls, which can cause or which can affect the immune system, the fertility, the child development, and possibly increase the risk of certain kind of cancers. Then definitely you can have mercury poisoning, which interferes with your nervous system, and it hinders the development of the fetus and the young children. Okay, so that is the effects of biomagnification. So there is some word called as bioaccumulation also, which is interchangeably used with biomagnification. Okay, so these two words are interchangeably used, and the distinction between bioaccumulation and biomagnification is that bioaccumulation occurs at a trophic level and is the increase in concentration of a substance in certain tissue, usually a fatty tissue of an organism due to the absorption from food and environment. Okay, the longer the half-life of the substance, the greater the risk of poisoning through levels of toxins and are not very high in the environment. That is bioaccumulation. Bioaccumulation varies between individual organisms as well, between the species. Okay, it doesn't have the same like spreading in individuals and the species. It varies very differently. The large fat long-lived individuals or species with low rates of metabolism or excretion of a chemical with bioaccumulate with a low excretion of chemical will have a large accumulation than the small thin short-lived organisms. Okay, so the we can say that an old lake trout may bioaccumulate much more than a young bluegill in the same lake. Okay, so it basically says that the bioaccumulation is higher in large and fat and long-lived individuals than in small, thin and short-lived organisms. So please just keep in mind that bioaccumulation is a word that is used simultaneously with biomagnification, which is bioaccumulation is also a concentration of these substances in different trophic levels of your food chain. They are mainly absorbed into the fatty tissues of your body or fatty tissues of the organisms, and they are absorbed through food. Okay, food and also environment can be a factor. Next is the nutrient cycles. Okay, the flow of energy in ecosystem is always one way. The nutrients which are needed to produce organic material is circulated around the system and reused several times. Okay, the energy is always one way, but nutrients are always circulated around the system. Okay, energy just it starts from your sun, which is the main source. Then the plant consumes it, and through and plant becomes the producer. Then it flows to the other food chain levels, and the maximum it reached to the apex. Okay, apex, that tertiary consumer. Okay, and it stops there, and the energy flow also decreases from your starting level to your last level. But the nutrients that which are needed for producing the organic material, that they are circulated and reused several times. There are basically two types of cycle. One is the gaseous cycle, and second is the sedimentary cycles. Okay, gaseous cycles and sedimentary cycles. Now the nutrients such as magnesium, before saying about the gaseous and the sedimentary cycle, I'll tell you in short about what is a micronutrient and what is a macronutrient. Okay, so the nutrients definitely play an important role in the life of every living organism. Okay, so just to keep in mind, we'll see what is a macronutrient and what is a micronutrient. Okay, All natural elements that are capable of being absorbed by plants, usually as gases from the air or as soluble salts from the soil, but only oxygen, carbon, hydrogen and nitrogen are needed in large quantities. These substances are known as macronutrients and form the basis of fat, carbohydrates and proteins. I hope you understood it. It is like all the natural elements that are capable of being absorbed by plants, either from gases like from the air or from the soluble salts in the soil, are called as macro nutrients, which helps in developing fats, carbohydrates and proteins in your living organism. Now the other nutrients like the magnesium, sulfur, phosphor, etc., that are needed in minute amounts, not in vast amounts, in minute amounts, are known as micronutrients. Okay. Now the nutrient cycle, as we have seen, it is like a circular kind of a thing, it is not one way, it is get like recycled several times. So the nutrient cycle can be presented in a framework with each cycle, or where each cycle has a reservoir pool, which is large, slow moving non-biological component, and it has an exchange pool, which is smaller, more active portion where the nutrient is exchanged between the biotic and the abiotic components of an ecosystem. Okay, so basically it tells that a nutrient cycle has a reservoir pool and what pool? The exchange pool. The reservoir pool is large, where you have your non-biological component, and the exchange pool is smaller, where you have active portions of the nutrients that can be exchanged between the living and the non-living organisms in an ecosystem. Okay. So based on this, you have two cycles called as gaseous cycles and the sedimentary cycles. Okay, and the gaseous ones are happening in the reservoir pool. Okay, the gaseous pool the happens in the reservoir pool, and the sedimentary ones, or the sedimentary type of cycle, it happens in the reservoir pool. It also happens in the reservoir pool with the base of the earth's crust. Okay. So the gaseous, I'll say it again, the gaseous ones, or the gaseous type of cycle, which happens in the reservoir pool, in which the reservoir pool is the atmosphere, and the sedimentary ones in which the reservoir pool is the earth's crust. Now you have another name of nutrient cycling, which is called as biogeochemical cycles. Okay, which is called as biogeochemicals. Now, other than the gaseous ones and the sedimentary ones, which are categorized based on the like a reservoir pool and the exchange pool, you have four main nutrient cycles. What are they? They are water cycle, carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle and oxygen cycle. Now nutrient cycle, it is also called as hydrologic cycle, hydrologic, or the water cycle. We are talking about the water cycle. The water cycle, also called as the hydrologic cycle, where water is an essential element for life to exist on earth. Okay, so the water from oceans, lakes, rivers and other reservoirs, they are continuously converted to vapor by the process of evaporation and transpiration from the surface of plants. Okay, next the water vapor gets condensed and returned by precipitation, and the cycle continues. The water falling on the ground is absorbed again and stored as ground water. Okay, so please see the picture. where you have the water cycle. Now you can see over here that the first phase where you have evaporation, okay, where the water from the lakes or the rivers, it get converted as vapor, okay, that is condensation, the process of condensation or evaporation, or you can say transpiration from this surface of the plants, okay, that happens. And the condensed water vapor, okay, the condensed water vapor, it gets precipitated, okay, it gets precipitated, that is in the form of rain. It can be in the form of rain, it can be in the form of snow, it can be form of sleet, it can be in the form of hailstorm, okay. So the some type of precipitation, the precipitation happens, and the water again gets collected on the ground, and it's absorbed and stored in the stored as groundwater. So that is a water cycle or the hydrologic cycle. Next cycle is the carbon cycle. Okay, carbon cycle. Carbon is the main constituent of all living cells. All the organic matter and the biomolecules contain carbon. Carbon is present in mainly the carbon dioxide and the methane in the atmosphere. Okay. There is a continuous exchange of carbon between the biotic and the abiotic components by the process of photosynthesis and respiration. That means the physical, that is the living and the non-living organisms exchange carbon between them through the process of photosynthesis and respiration. Now the carbon dioxide that is found in the atmosphere is fixed by the plants in the process of photosynthesis. Okay, and all the living organisms release carbon dioxide during respiration. Now, the carbon that is released into the atmosphere by burning of fossil fuels and auto emissions, then the organic carbon comes from dead and decaying organisms, and waste products is released into the atmosphere after decomposition. Okay, so if you see the picture, you can very well understand that you have carbon dioxide, that is CO2, which comes as a form of animal respiration, that is like even human comes under that, the animal respiration. Then you have the CO2 that is coming from the waste products, the you can say that the dead organisms and the waste products get decomposed, and you get the CO2. Then from the vehicles, the fossil fuels or the auto emissions again give you the carbon. All this carbon together, like it is absorbed with or it's absorbed in the process of photosynthesis by the plants, and in turn they give us the oxygen, so that things gets balanced. The plants take the carbon dioxide, and in turn we get our oxygen, and now the things gets balanced in the environment. Next is the nitrogen cycle. Okay, the nitrogen is also an essential component of life, but the nitrogen cannot be directly utilized by any living organism. It has to be converted to some other form. So, by the process of nitrogen fixation, the nitrogen fixing bacteria, what it does is it fixes the atmospheric nitrogen to ammonia, and nitrifying bacteria convert ammonia to nitrate. Okay, it is then taken up by the plants. So the nitrogen can't be directly taken. The nitrogen fixing bacteria, it acts on the atmospheric nitrogen, converts it to ammonia. Then the nitrifying bacteria convert ammonia to nitrate, and then it can be absorbed by the plants. The atmospheric nitrogen is converted to nitrates directly by lightning and assimilated by plants also. They decomposes, break down the proteins and the amino acids of dead and decaying organic matter and waste products. That also releases nitrogen. Then the denitrifying bacteria converts ammonia and nitrates to nitrogen and nitrous oxide by the process of denitrification. Okay, denitrification. In this way, nitrogen is released back to the atmosphere. Okay, there is nitrogen fixation, where the nitrogen present in your atmosphere is absorbed by the nitrogen fixing bacteria, and it is converted to ammonia and then to nitrate, which can then be used up by plants. And next is the denitrification process, where the bacteria that are present in the soil, they convert back the ammonia and nitrates present in the soil to nitrogen and nitrous oxide, and they release it back to the atmosphere. Okay. The next cycle is oxygen cycle. Oxygen is also essential for life. The aquatic organisms are dependent on oxygen that is dissolved in water. The oxygen is required for also for the decomposition of the biodegradable waste products. Now, photosynthesis is the main process by which the oxygen present is the main source of oxygen present in the atmosphere. That is, the plants take in the carbon dioxide and release the oxygen. So that gives the main that photosynthesis is the main source of oxygen present in the atmosphere. Then atmospheric oxygen is taken up by the living organism through respiration, and they release carbon dioxide, which is used by photosynthesis by the plant. So there you get an circulation of your nutrients, where one organism is helping the other, like one organism in one trophic level is helping another organism in another trophic level. You can see in the picture where the plants the animals breathe the oxygen. Okay, the animals breathe the oxygen and they release the carbon dioxide. Okay, they breathe the oxygen and then they release the carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide is then taken up by the plants along with the help of sunlight. And through the process called as photosynthesis, they create oxygen back, and it is then given to the atmosphere. It is then regenerated in the atmosphere. So that is with the oxygen cycle. So we saw four cycles: the oxygen cycle, carbon cycle, water cycle, and then nitrogen cycle. So all the cycle says that the nutrients are always moving around the environment. Means like someone is consuming it, it is changed to some other form, and again it is back replenished back into your atmosphere. Nothing is depleting or decreasing. The nutrients are always going like a complete circular circular chain of action. Okay. Next is the ecosystem services. So what are the services or the benefits of the ecosystem? Ecosystem services are defined as the benefits that the people get from the ecosystem. So what are the benefits? One is provisioning. Okay, the provisioning, that is they get water, food, then fuel, etc. from the ecosystem. Next is regulating. Regulating in the sense that the climate get regulated, the flood get regulated, then the diseases get regulated, then there is water purification happening. So all such regulations help the human beings. Then cultural services, it gives cultural services, that is it can provide a nutritional recreational support, then it can provide spiritual support, etc. And all these are directly affecting the people and supporting them to maintain other services. Okay, the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment (MA) was initiated in the year 2001 by United Nations. The objective of MA was to assess the consequences of ecosystem change for human well-being and the scientific basis for action needed to enhance the conversion and sustainable use of those systems and their contribution to human being as well. Okay, so the ecosystems, it gives lot of support to our well-being. It can be called as an nutrient cycling, where we get our food, water, then fuel, etc. from the ecosystem. Then it can support us like the soil, with the soil formation, where it help you with the flood, for it help you with the regulating the climate, it helps with the flood, it helps with the disease regulation, then for water purification, etc. Okay, and then for it supports the human being with the primary production, like primary production mainly includes food, fresh water, etc. The cultural is something that give a good peace of mind for the people, like recreational, cultural, spiritual, aesthetic, and educational services for the people, that can be directly obtained from the ecosystem. Now, what is an ecotone? Okay, ecotone, it is a transitional area between the two different ecosystems. Okay, the ecotone is a transitional area between two different ecosystems. Example can be the transitional area between the forest and then grassland. Okay, a transitional area between a forest and a grassland. It has some characteristic of each bordering biological community and often contains species not found in the overlapping communities, which simply means that an ecotone can have the characteristics of both the biological community that is coming, because it's an area in between, so it definitely will have the biological properties of uh, the systems that are surrounding it, and it often contains species also that are not found in the overlapping communities. Now, the ecotone may exist along a broad belt or in a small pocket, such as forest clearing, whereas two local communities blend together. Okay, so it means that it can be big or small. Ecotone can be big or small, and ecotonal area has a higher density of organism of one species and a greater number of species than are found in either flanking community. Okay, some organisms need a transitional area for activities such as the courtship, nesting, or for foraging of food. Ecotones can also appear when one body of water meets another. For example, when estuaries meet lagoons, you form an ecotone, or at the boundary between water and the land. Usually, that area is called as marshy areas or marshes. So all these landforms are called as ecotones. The area between the estuaries and lagoons, the area between water and the land that is called as marshes. Okay, so the ecotone is sometimes like a transitional area where the organisms come for courtship, nesting, or food. Okay, next is this picture represents an ecotone. Here you can see a place where the land meets the water. This space in between. So okay, this space in between is called as an ecotone, where the land meets the water. So this side basically is an aquatic ecosystem, and this side is an terrestrial or a land ecosystem. So these forms the boundaries where both of them meet. So this particular area is called as an ecotone. Okay, now since it is land meeting the water, it is called as a marshland. Okay, it's called as a marshland. Now this particular area can be used by the different organisms for either nesting, or for finding their food, or for courtship, etc. Okay, now next is the edge effect. What is the edge effect? So the edge effect is related with the ecotone. Now, if ecotone, it's actually often have large number of species and larger population densities than the communities on the either side. Okay, so because it is a habitat that is favorable for species that is living in both the surrounding communities. Okay, so it is a favorable place to be. Usually the ecotones have a large number of population, or larger population or a larger population density than the communities that are on the either side. Okay, this tendency of increased biodiversity within the ecotone is referred to as edge effect, or in similar terms you can say that the larger amount of species found in this ecotone, because of its like the because of its favorable, or because of the comfortness of being in that zone, is referred to as the edge effect. And those species which occur primarily and abundantly or primarily in this ecotones are called as edge species. So these are the terms affected sorry two terms associated with ecotone: edge effect and edge species. Now if you see the picture that is shown in the slide, you can say that A is a community and B is also a community. Now together you have an space that is shared in between, which is called as an ecotone, which makes a community. Now if you see the organisms that are living in that particular area, that is the area where both the communities meet. So if you see that area, you can understand that there are the larger number of species, or you have a lot of biodiversity in this particular area. In the community A, you have only three type of species, which is basically represented using this red, blue, and yellow boxes. And in the community B, you have again three type of species which are represented by red, blue, and yellow circles. Okay, now if you see the ecotone, you have species that are particular to the ecotone, as well as species that are there in A as well as in B. So the biodiversity is high over there. The ecotone has its own organisms as well as the organisms who shares the ecotone from the surrounding community. So this effect is called as an edge effect, and the species who are living inside the ecotone is called as an edge species. Next, another word that is associated with ecotone is home range. Okay, home range. So, what is a home range? Home range of an animal is an area where it spends its time. Okay, it is the region where it encompasses all the resources the animal require to survive and reproduce. The competition for food and other resources influences how animals are distributed in space. Even when animals do not interact, the clumped resources may cause individuals to aggregate. Okay, so a home range in an ecotone is an area where the animal spend its time, like it spends most of its time. And now another words like a little you have to keep in mind is that a few words that you have to keep in mind is hologenic, parasites, uh, otacology, and synecology. So what are these words meaning? So now hologenic means those animals which take their food through their mouth, such as big animals like elephants, cow, camel, etc. These are called as hologenic animals. Okay. Now what are parasites? Parasites are animals which depend upon another animals for their food and life. Next is autocology, that is the study of relationship of individual species within an environment. And next is synecology, it is the study of plant communities in relation to their habitats of a given ecosystem. Okay, so please keep in mind these four words these four words also. Maybe you will see it in your exam, just like please keep in mind. Next, we can see a few preliminary questions, that is basically the multiple choice questions which came from the topic that we just covered from the previous years. So, in the food chain section, so the question is which one of the following is the correct sequence of a food chain, which was asked in the year 2014. Now the correct answer is option A. Diatoms, crustaceans and herrings. These are the correct sequence for the food chain. Now, with reference to food chain in ecosystem, which of the following kind of organism are known as decomposer organism or organisms, which was asked in 2013. The option are 1 virus, 2 fungi, 3 is bacteria. Select the correct answer using the codes given below. The answer is option B. That is 2 and 3 only. That is fungi and bacteria are decomposers in the ecosystem. Next question, with reference to food chains in ecosystem, consider the following statements. This question was asked in 2013. The statements are 1. A food chain illustrates the order in which a chain of organisms feed upon each other. 2. Food chains are found within the population of a species. 3. Food chain illustrates the number of each organism which are eaten by others. Which of the statements given above are correct? The answer is option A. 1 only. 1 only is the correct answer. That is, a food chain illustrates the order in which a chain of organisms feed upon each other. That is the correct answer. Next is ecosystem. Next few questions is like based on the ecosystem. Which one of the following is the correct sequence of ecosystem in order of decreasing productivity? Okay, that was asked in 2013. The answer to the question is option C. Mangrove, grasslands, lakes, oceans. Okay, that is the correct sequence in order of decreasing productivity. Next is in the grasslands, trees do not replace the grasses as a part of an ecological succession because of dash. That is asked in 2013. Answer is option C, water limits and fire. What would happen if phytoplankton of an ocean is completely destroyed for some reason? That was asked in the year 2012. Okay. The statements associated are one, the ocean as a carbon sink would be adversely affected. The food chain in the ocean would be adversely affected. 3. The density of the ocean water would drastically decrease. Select the correct answer using the codes given below. Now, the correct answer is option A, 1 and 2 only. The 1 and 2 only are correct answer in this question. Next question. The Millennium Ecosystem Assessment describes the following major categories of ecosystem services: provisioning, supporting, regulating, preserving, and cultural. Which of the following is supporting service? Asked in 2012. The correct answer is option C. Control of climate and disease. That is a supporting service. Okay. Uh, Control of climate and disease is a supporting service. Now, next question: which of the tropical rainforest is removed? It does not regenerate quickly as compared to tropical deciduous forest. This is because of dash. The options are: the soil of rainforest is deficient in nutrients. Propagules of the trees in a rainforest have poor viability. Rainforest species are slow growing. Exotic species invade the fertile soil of rainforest. The answer is option A. The soil of rainforest is deficient in nutrients. So that is the reason why they do not regenerate quickly as compared to the tropical deciduous forest. This question was asked in the year 2011. Okay. In the context of ecosystem productivity, marine upwelling zones are important as they increase the marine productivity by bringing the dash. The answer is no, you have different statements. Statement 1 is decomposer microorganism to the surface. 2. Nutrients to the surface. 3. Bottom dwelling organisms to the surface. The answer is option B. That is 2 only, nutrients to the surface. Okay. So in context to the ecosystem productivity, marine upwelling zones are important as they increase the marine productivity by bringing the nutrients to the surface. That is the correct answer. Next is few questions on ecology. Consider the following organism: 1. Agaricus, 2. Nostoc, 3. Spirogyra. Which of the above is used as a biofertilizer or biofertilizers? The answer is option B, 2 only. That is, Nostoc only is used for bio or used as a biofertilizer. Next question: which one of the following terms describes not only the physical space occupied by an organism but also functional role in the community of organisms? The answer is ecological niche. Okay. I'll read the question once more. Which one of the following term describes not only the physical space occupied by the organism but also its role? So, role is always associated with niche. So the answer is option B, ecological niche. This question was asked in 2013. Next, a pesticide which is a chlorinated hydrocarbon is sprayed on a food crop. The food chain is food crop, rat, snake, hawk. In this food chain, the highest concentration of pesticide would accumulate in which of the following? Okay, the answer is option D. That is hawk. This question is asked in 2010. So when we saw the ecology, we saw that the pesticides or the other chemicals, it gets accumulated in the higher trophic level, or like the more concentration comes in the higher trophic level organism. So here in this food chain, hawk is the highest trophic level or highest order in the food chain. So there you get more accumulation of the pesticide. Thank you, friends. I hope this session was useful for you. We started with the ecology, and we went through a lot of basic and most frequently asked topics in the UPSC, and also I covered a few questions that were asked in the last years. So I hope this session was useful for you, and it will help you in your preparation. If you like the video, please do share it with your friends, and also please do subscribe to the channel Defense IAS Academy. Thank you, everyone.